Yeah, but the important folks are here. Because the basketball game doesn't start till 7:30.
That's where I'm headed.
Oh, yeah? You announcing? Okay. St. James, right? Girls.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of the Fairmont School Board. It is Tuesday, December 11, 2018. Roll call is Dal and Danielle are absent,
We have a quorum.
and we have a quorum. So join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And before we turn to business, we're going to take a moment of silence for two
Right.
important people to the district.
I'd like to ask the audience to take a moment of silence. The school district lost two wonderful former board member, Helen Gold, who had served in the school board for 26 years, from 1982 to 2008. She passed away a few days ago. And of course, Sue Nelson, our longtime business manager who worked in our district for over 32 years, passed away, and her funeral will be on this Saturday. So if you'd please take a moment of silence to remember both Helen and Sue.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, to business. Minutes from last time?
I move to approve the November 27th, 2018 school board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And agenda as presented?
No green agenda? I will move to approve the white agenda that was in our packet.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We will turn to celebrations. The high school mock trial team. We have a team of presenters.
Yes.
Hi, welcome board, or thank you for having us. I'm one of the coaches for Mock Trial. It's a new program that we're starting at Fairmont. I coach with Chris Johnston. We're both attorneys. I work as Judge Truszynski's law clerk, and Chris Johnston is one of the public defenders in town. We started this program because we both participated in Mock Trial. I participated in college, and Chris participated in high school, and we felt like it did a lot for us. Not just as lawyers, but also just for developing as who we are. It teaches you a lot about public speaking. It also helps establish your creativity and how to think on your feet, how to be clever. We thought it would be a good thing if high schoolers wanted to get involved, and we found 9 students who wanted to participate, so we started this program. I'm going to primarily let them tell you about what they do and why. I just wanted to introduce myself first.
And would you please introduce your name, each of you? Jamie?
Grunman, sorry.
I'm Emily Karakas.
I'm Bergen Stumpf. We're both juniors.
Yeah. So we have a case that we're arguing over in mock trial, I guess. So basically, it's a county commissioner suing the Cahill Monitor for defamation because they published an article saying that he took a bribe, and he feels he didn't take the bribe, or he says he doesn't. And so, me personally, I work mostly on the plaintiff side because I'm doing the closing for that. And so I'm trying to help prove that he didn't take the bribe and that stuff. You wanna?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do I say? Here, you talk about the defendant.
Right. So when we go to a mock trial competition, we either argue for the plaintiff or for the defense. It depends on the day. And each side has 3 witnesses and 3 attorneys on each team that competes. And Emily does a lot on the plaintiff side, I do a lot on the defense side. So we present points and examine witnesses and present our cases from that perspective on that given day. And it's just really interesting. This here with me is our 96-page case that we have this year. And it has all of the affidavits for the witnesses and kind of directions on how we're supposed to go about this. We have to know procedural rules. We have to know objections, different ways we can object, and all of this is, we're all coached by the attorneys that are our coaches. And it's really interesting, and I think it's really cool for mock trial to have attorney coaches because they know this like no one else. So it's really cool because they can work with us really in depth about what we're doing, and we're just really excited to be a part of this. It's the first year that we had it here, and we were both really excited to do this, and I think it's really cool that we have community members, attorneys that will, you know, give their time to us high schoolers twice a week and take us to competitions and teach us about what they're passionate about. So thank you for your support, and looking forward to a really good year.
So who do you compete with?
Other schools' teams.
Okay,
So-
have you competed yet?
Not yet. Our first one was supposed to be 15, but we have people taking the ACT, is it?
The SAT, the 15th.
SAT.
So-
So we're gonna, what's the next?
January
January 5th.
And
Okay.
there's about 90 schools in Minnesota competing.
Oh, nice.
Maybe, wow.
I think a few have dropped, so maybe a few less than that, but roughly.
Are these based on on real court cases, or are they?
They're generally based on real court cases. This one is as well.
Yeah, so the Minnesota State Bar Association takes care of this, and yeah, and they wrote the case from Missouri, a case that it was adapted from that.
So do you research the case?
No, all the information we need is in this thing, and so we kind of just have to know this by heart,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Very fun.
According to the schedule, that looks like you're competing against Albert Lee, St. Peter again, and Waseca.
Yep.
Does that look right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, these other schools, have they had mock trial in years past?
Yeah, I know that Laverne has had it for a really long time, and some other schools have had mock trial for a long time. So we're just kind of getting started, but
Can I ask why you two got involved in this?
I thought it would kind of be like debate, and I really love debate because it makes me think on my feet, and I love like researching stuff and like picking things apart. So getting to like dissect all of this was really exciting for me personally.
I also like debate a lot, and I've been involved with discussion, which is one of the categories in our speech team. And I am looking at possibly going to law school and doing this as a career. So it was like the perfect activity for me to be in, and it's just been really good. Yeah.
How did you first hear about it?
We
I think Mr. Walker told me about it, the debate coach,
Okay.
because he's friends with Chris Johnston, and so he was telling me in advance that we were thinking about having a mock trial team, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. I saw the sweet posters. They made some awesome posters around school, and it had like Ruth Bader Ginsburg on it. And I was like, that's cool. All right.
And how many students?
9.
9.
Yep.
So are you going to look to expand that next year?
I hope so.
Yeah.
That'd be great to have 2 teams.
When you go to a debate, I realize you haven't gone to one yet, but does everyone take part of it, or are they each one, like, is it 2 do this, or is the 9 the whole group that debates the case you have?
Well, it depends on which side of the argument we're on. Each side has 3 lawyers that we need, and then 3 witnesses, and then a timer and a bailiff. And so everyone gets used no matter what they are. It just depends what part they're doing.
Okay. So then eventually, then it could grow into a lot more individuals, a team that would want to partake. That's interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think the St. Peter and Albert Lee teams, they have 2 teams. So they bring 18 students or a little more than that to each competition, and they actually compete against each other. So I think that's kind of how you grow a mock trial team, is having 2 different teams.
Wow. Okay. That's neat.
And board, I think we did put in your packet tonight, I think Judy did distribute the list of the 9 students that are involved and the list of the calendar of the events. So if you have
So approximately, what is the time frame for your season? When did you start practicing, and then when will you be complete with this?
We started practicing probably about a month ago. Is that sound about 2 months? 2 months ago. Time flies
Time
when you're having
flies.
fun. Yeah. And then we're gonna be done whenever our meets are over. What time is that? That's January.
If we make
February?
it to
Not January,
state,
February.
it's like
State?
February.
February. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on how we do.
So it works out really well if you don't have a winter sport that you're participating in.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Great.
Are the competitions open to the public?
Yeah. I think so.
I believe so, but they're in courtrooms, so seating might be limited, and they're
Okay.
during the week.
Okay. Very good.
I did notice that Bergen and Emily were both part of the orchestra last evening, and a few of us were there last night. What a great concert that was. So thank you for doing both. And Ms. Grunman, thank you so much for serving as a coach. We really do appreciate that, and we thank you and Chris for doing this. And this is going to be great for our school.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, next we will hear from Katie and Kim regarding the Schmickley Foundation grant.
Hi, I'm Kim Bremer, 5th and 6th grade band teacher.
I'm Katie Kenning, 5th through 12th grade orchestra teacher.
First off, we would like to thank not only the Schmickley Foundation, but you as the school board and the school for the money that you have given us. We received a $50,000 grant that I know you'll be accepting at the next school board meeting. But last night at the orchestra concert, we accepted the big giant check from the Schmickley Foundation for $50,000 to go towards the fine arts, the orchestra band, and I believe Kim Coppin was also involved in that $50,000 grant. And on top of that, the school put $100,000 towards our classrooms as well. We are planning on using them for instruments. We have kind of already received some of those instruments, and kids are using them, and you should see their faces. It's absolutely wonderful. One of my students said it was like Christmas because he was so happy to get a new instrument that he could not afford himself or his family couldn't afford. Katie with the orchestra program.
We had to tell the 6th grade bass players to stop kissing the new bassist, please. We had to start rehearsal. It was so cute, though.
It was great. We met with them this afternoon as well, and they toured a couple of the classrooms to see some of the new instruments for the kids that they're going to be using, and we're going to use that more. I know Kate Kallenbach at the high school will be getting some new, very much needed equipment for her classroom. Emily Labus will be getting some much needed instruments and things that she can use for her elementary kids. And we are really excited about it, and we just wanted to thank you for your generosity and to help our program succeed and continue to be successful in the Fairmont School District.
Well, we think the fine arts are hugely important, in the schools, that they really complement academics. And so, and we think we have a great music team.
Right. And it's
So, no. Yes, the 6 of us, we mesh really well and we work really well together and we support each other, and that's awesome to have that, to have 6 music teachers in one district is phenomenal because, coming to this school from a district where I was the only music teacher, K-12, it's just amazing to have such a wonderful group of people to work with.
And it's great. This is dream scenario for my first year. This is just to have so much support from the staff and the students and the school board and the community. When I tell people about it, they can't believe it.
Well, the concert last night was the proof that, that, the children are benefiting.
Absolutely, and that's what we do. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Are the children, and I mean just to see and your stories. I mean, warm my heart that they're kissing the instruments. I know how much instruments cost.
Yeah.
And I know it can be a burden for families, but just the idea that they have that opportunity to have that instrument in their home or to practice and just find the way that it makes the music, that it's the art. And it's just phenomenal that we have got just wonderful staff that will work with our students to make them the best they can be.
And it's beneficial because we share students too. So some of those students are in both band and orchestra and they can't afford 2 instruments. So it gives them, sometimes after the 3-month trial period is up, they have to give their instruments back, and we don't want to see kids have to do that because they can't afford instruments. So we're very grateful for everything that you guys have done for us. So
And we're very grateful for the Schmickley Foundation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
absolutely,
I mean, that was a big plus.
yeah.
And we learned today, too, that, the Schmickley Foundation, Juanita actually ended up, she was from the Martin County area. She went to Huntley High School, is
That's where she-
what we
yep,
learned
yep.
today. And married a man and moved to Texas, and unfortunately, he went to World War II and was killed. And then she ended up in California and married someone, and they obviously were quite successful. But she came back here and spent the last few years of her life here in town, and she set up this foundation. The foundation is to run for 40 years, and this is year 4. And when we met with the folks today, the trustees, that they made it clear that every 6 months you can ask for additional funds. And there were really 3 areas that they focused on. She wanted money to be spent on early childhood programs, on elderly programs, or the fine arts. And Juanita apparently was a painter and also taught ballet and ballroom dancing. And so fine arts were very important to her, music and art and dance. And she would just be so pleased to see what's going on. And then we learned today, too, that Brooke Woolraby actually worked with Juanita a little bit in the last couple of years of her life. And that was a nice little connection. And you can read all about this nice article in the Saturday Fairmont Sentinel. Okay? I'm sure it's well written.
Okay.
But yeah, very good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent,
Wow.
you have a report for us?
I have a couple of things. First of all, enrollment report. I'm pleased to point out that our enrollment is exactly the same as it was last board meeting. Same number of students, 1 less at the elementary, 1 additional student at the high school, 1,640 students. Also, just an announcement that we're announcing that there'll be another Saturday Welding Academy class that would begin on January 5. And we're working with Community Ed to take registration, so if individuals want to sign up for that class. Of course, our own students can take that class at no charge. If you're a student in a non-resident district, we charge that district $250, and of course, adults are encouraged to take this class. And there's a cap. There's only 20 students that are allowed in this class. We only have 21 welding booths, so we have 20 people that can be in this class. Once again, the class runs from January 5 on Saturday until April 27, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 noon. I want to thank Mr. Bodine for doing that. Also, in your board packet tonight, I do have a memo and a 2-pager that gives you an update of our LED lighting project. And I just want to share this with the public. As you know, this last year, we've been switching out all of our fluorescent light bulbs with LED lighting. And we did that really for 2 reasons. One, better lighting for our faculty and our students, and also cheaper operating costs. And the memo I put together points out that the total cost of this project is $736,622. We are receiving a rebate from SEMPA of $152,901 for a net cost of $583,721. But the second sheet is coming from the city, which shows how many kilowatts that we'll save. And annually, we'll save $72,013.91 in electrical costs. And so if you take the 583,000 divided by 72,000, there's a payback of 8.1 years. Now, originally when we did the bid, we thought the payback would be about 6 years. However, what we found out is that the people that did the initial survey, they didn't count all of the lights. So they said we needed 5,028 fixtures. We actually needed 6,402. And so we did add additional lighting. There's one more project that will be finished, and that will be the emergency lighting system in the hallways of our new elementary school. Those will be replaced probably over the Christmas break, and that will complete the project. On top of the savings, though, the annual savings of $72,000 of electrical costs, it's estimated that we'll save $22,879 of maintenance costs. Now, the reason why I didn't put this as a real savings is that we're not going to lay anybody off. It's just that our buildings and grounds people will have more time to do other things. But they won't be replacing light bulbs as frequently, and they won't be replacing ballasts. And it takes about an hour. You know, if somebody in a classroom says that their lights are out, it took about an hour for the maintenance person to actually come and get the ladder and get the light bulb and maybe switch out the ballast. And this is going to save buildings and grounds people a lot of time. But more importantly, the lighting is better for our faculty and our students. And they're pretty bright. I don't know if everybody's using all their lights, but I know when I go into classrooms, it's really, really bright. So we appreciate that. And let's see. We did the enrollment report. We did the LED report. We did the Saturday welding class. We did mock trial. I'm finished.
Calendar?
The calendar, thank you. The pink sheet. The calendar's pretty brief this month.
There isn't much, but.
There isn't much, no. Just a point that, by the way, at 6 o'clock tonight, we'll have a school tax levy hearing. And Bradley Carlton, our business manager, will be presenting that. Following that presentation, there will be a tax abatement hearing for Great Plains Transportation Building Expansion. And I note that on December 20th, there's a Southern Plains board meeting at the SPEC building. There is no school board meeting on December 25th. That's Christmas. Remember, we're only going to have one meeting this month.
We get the holiday off.
We get the holiday off, same pay. And then coming back on Wednesday, January 2, the faculty have a teacher in service. So there's no school for students, but a teacher in service for the faculty.
Is there still an operations committee meeting scheduled for Thursday?
Yes, there is.
December 13th at 10 a.m.?
That's at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And the topic of that is hockey fees. So once again, thank you for reminding me. Thursday, 10 o'clock, hockey fees. Operations Committee. I'm actually finished.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. Thank you, Joe. Financial business, donations, Dan?
We have a couple more donations tonight. I introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption from Appendix A. Whereas $500 has been donated by Louise Hendricks through the 3M Gives program. The donation will be divided as follows: $150 to robotics, $150 to band, and $200 to the Cardinal Fund. Be it resolved by Fairmont Area School Board to gratefully accept the gift.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Chair votes aye. Nicole?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Motion passes. And another one?
Appendix B, I introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas Bart's Trucking donated $300 to the Welding Academy, be it resolved by the Fairmont Area School Board to gratefully accept the gift.
Second.
Roll call. Chair votes aye. Nicole?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Dan. And now we will have financial reports. Julie and
Brad,
And Brad.
doing it.
In front of your a little more to talk about this time than last time, but nothing terribly unusual here. We did have what we call an IDEAS payment. That's where we get our state aid, primarily general education aid and special education aid, the amount of $405,000. We did draw down federal awards, Title I, Title II, REAP, and Title III. So that's the 62,000 you see there, the 127,000 there. We also received payments from the state for our food service program. Some of that's state dollars, some of that's federal dollars, but the state administers all those programs. We also got a nice payment for what we call third-party billing. There, $4,500 there, plus payment from the county for property taxes. So, nice run of receipts there in the last couple weeks. Then on the transfers out side of things, we did have a payroll. So we've got payroll as well as taxes, pensions, health insurance, life insurance, flex spending. We also had our monthly credit card. The last item there is our P card. So, and next meeting, because in January we'll have the summary of that P card for you. The timing was a little tight on getting the board packets ready to go. So. Then you should have a payment register there as well. I had the opportunity to review these last week, and I know Julie reviewed them as well. So just looking for items of note there. One there, there's a vendor house of note there for $4,250. That was the one that Julie asked about. Those are actually some cellos that will be paid for as part of the. Say it for me again, Joe.
Schmickley.
Schmickley.
Schmickley
Yeah,
Foundation,
Schmickley.
yes.
So that's part of that that grant. There, our largest payment on the list is for our our busing, that 95,000 on page 2. That's the regular monthly bill from them. And there's a payment to the Minnesota Community Foundation. That's part of the Partners in Education. That's where that payment is sourced from. Crest Refrigeration there as well. That's a rather large one on the front page. We had, I believe it was a freezer that got replaced for food service. So that was an actual. It went out. We needed to replace the whole thing. So that's what I have on there. Any questions from? Anybody?
I don't have any questions. I reviewed these over the weekend, so if there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the wire transfers for November 21st, 2018 to December 6th, 2018, and payment of the December 11th, 2018 bills.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Brad. Okay, moving on to new business. MSBA conference attendance.
We just need a motion.
Oh, I can do that.
Can you, Julie?
Yeah. We have a few board members who are attending, some are attending just the education, well, it's all education, don't get me wrong, but some of the leadership, what is what I want to call it? The training, the leadership training classes, and some of us are attending the conference itself. And so we do need to make a motion to approve that. And so I will do that and approve the board members' overnight attendance in the MSBA Winter Conference, January 17th and 18th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. School calendar, Nicole.
Yes, the school calendar is being presented tonight for board approval. Of note, as I mentioned at the last board meeting, they tried, when the calendar committee put this together, they tried hard to listen to what the community had to say and parents. And they tried to put all days that one school had off, that they made it so both schools had off and that they weren't split. And that, I believe, is the case with all of the days, with the exception of the back-to-school conference days at the very beginning of the school year. So September 3rd and 4th, the elementary school has its back-to-school conferences with their students, but the high school actually has full days of school on those days. So the high school will begin actual full days of class on September 3rd, and the elementary school will begin their actual full days of class on September 5th. Of note, Christmas vacation or winter break begins December 23rd, and it's a 2-week break this upcoming year, and students will come back to school on January 6th. Also, the last day of school is scheduled to be June 2nd, with graduation being June 7th. I'll move to approve the calendar as presented for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we have no personnel issues tonight. We will move to board committee reports. And I will begin. We had a meeting, a breakfast with the board on November 28th, and once again, we had an opportunity to visit with a few students. I think our presence is becoming more accepted and and more recognized, and actually better advertised thanks to the administration. Signs were put
Well, I
up.
saw a picture someplace. Was that in the photo press or someplace? There was a picture. Well, I don't have Facebook, so it wasn't Facebook.
In the paper, there was one.
But it was someplace. I saw a picture that where we had met with. I mean, I didn't make it that morning, but I saw that you guys had met with them, and
Yeah.
it's very
and,
good.
Mari Myron, our new board member, was there,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
Joe and myself, and we heard from a few students. We've learned a trick to attract students.
Food.
They like donuts.
Well, even I think I was at the last meeting, and it took them a little while to warm up, even to the donuts. But they did get them on last meeting too. But that's wonderful.
Well, they walk up for a donut, and then they hesitate when you tell them there's a condition. They have to sit down and visit with us. But it's going well, and it's a great opportunity to hear exactly, from the students how some of the different programs within the school are going.
Well,
And-
it's just interesting to hear their perspective of what's going on. What's happening, things that are going right or wrong for them. I mean, it's just really neat to hear just what they have to say about it.
Well, especially when we introduce different programs, and the only way to find out how well they're working is to talk to the students. They're our customer, and so it's we'd like to we'd like to run out of donuts quickly.
Well, the topics that were important for students were the cell phone procedure that the high school put in place. They thought it was a board policy. We made it clear that we did not create a
So
board policy.
what is that policy right now?
The expectation is that when students, if they bring their cell phone into the classroom, they're supposed to hang it up on kind of I used to call it look like a hanger thing, like you put shoes in.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Or simply keep their phones out
In
of
their
sight.
pocket or
out of sight.
Out of sight, out of
And,
mind?
And they were concerned about that. They felt that they had never really been explained why that was put in place this year. And so there was some discussion that, and we shared that with the administration. They talked about Huddle, which is new this year, and talked about the flex learning, about how some teachers, they like how some teachers are doing it, and some other folks, they wonder if they're actually teaching, and it's really nice to just sit back and listen to, as Rufus said, the customers talk about their experience at their high school. And so that was interesting. But those are the three top issues, weren't they?
Those were the three big issues?
They were, yeah.
Okay. So what did they have to say about the huddle? How it's working, or?
It was.
I just know that we have some time to go before we have our hearing, so we might as well get into details, so.
It was, I think it's mixed.
Okay.
I mean, some students, well, the concept of a huddle is I think it's 9th through 12th, I believe, that
They're mixed.
that they mix they mix grades.
Okay.
And so it's an opportunity for students across the 9th through 12th grade levels to, interact. And so,
So they see it as beneficial that they're intermingled with the different grades, or do they think that they would prefer just their grade levels?
The small group that we met with, there's only maybe 5 or 6 different students, but I think they felt that they much would rather have their grade level. But
and then there was also, I think, maybe one student said that their time is so limited with activities that they, in the past, that time was used for, for study, like a study hall,
A prep period
study
kind
hall
of?
time.
Okay.
And so they missed that opportunity to.
But how long is the huddle?
For 9 through 12, it ends up being about just over 20 minutes.
So like I say, it was a mixed response.
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat that answer.
Oh, that's
So,
good, yeah.
Mr. Trado said the timeframe for the huddle is 20 minutes, and they meet every day?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
every day for 20
Except
minutes.
for Thursdays. At the end of our academic support time, they check in, but don't meet stuff.
Sure. You've got 22 minutes.
Well, I'm not going to plan to take 22 minutes. But,
Oh, we got other topics here yet.
Sure, yeah. So our students, on what I replied was on Thursdays, we have our academic support time, which is approximately an hour and a half for students to choose where they're receiving academic supports from their teachers. And then at the end of that time, they check back in for attendance purposes before they leave at the end of that academic support piece with their huddle teacher. So for the other 4 days a week, they do meet with their huddle advisor. Approximately 4 students from each grade level, 9 through 12. Grades 7 and 8, it becomes an extension of their 7th hour class. We felt it was more age appropriate for those students to minimize the number of transitions during the day, so one less transition. And most of those students have a more common core of teachers throughout their day, where when we get into our high school years, depending on the course tracks that they take, it could vary. So those are some of the slight differences in 7 through 12.
And I mean, and those things are things that we bring up that can be adjusted. We're just learning and trying to find what is a good, mix for the kids.
Absolutely, and a lot of schools implement some sort of advisory period throughout their day. We've adjusted some things based on student and adult feedback from last year into this year. And that's why these opportunities are invaluable in terms of continuing those lines of communication so we continue to learn and make these kinds of programs more effective for our kids.
I mean, it's very similar to the flex portion of the learning day as well. How they can use that to their advantage, but then use it to everybody's advantage or to make it a better activity or a process as well.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
Okay, thank you, Andy.
yes, thank you.
Okay, we will move to operations, Dan.
Our Operations Committee met last Monday, December 3rd. We went over 3 topics, the first being adult basic education salaries. And we approved a request by Ronnie Dower, Director of CER, to increase the adult basic education teacher salaries. Currently, they're being paid $18.70 per hour. We're going to raise that to $25 per hour, which is the same rate that teachers earn while performing curriculum work. And in comparison, brings us up to a comparable level with other districts in the area. St. James and Medelia pay $25 per hour for those same ABE teachers. In the Worthington district, they pay anywhere from $29 to $36 an hour. So that increase will take effect January 1st. We went over a request for compensation for the weight room supervisor. We have appropriated $10,000 to be used for a weight room supervisor, and the Staff Welfare Committee requested additional information on what other school districts are doing. We researched and found that other school districts pay a weight room supervisor per season comparable to the compensation of an assistant coach for any of those sports. So we approved the compensation rates of $2,500 for each sports season during the year, fall, winter, and spring, and also $2,500 for summer program. We requested that set hours be established and logged for equal access that would be available during each of those seasons. And that actually is generally, I think, a little bit less than what an assistant coach will make for most of the sports seasons. And finally, we went through a discussion about hockey fees. Members of the Hockey Association and some parents recently met with the superintendent and the activities director to discuss why the hockey fees were set at $350. That is the same fee that was charged by the Hockey Association in previous years. Representatives are requesting that hockey fees be set up now like other high school sports, now that hockey is under the guise of the school as all the other sports are now. The transition is complete from the hockey and soccer programs being run by their association to being run by the district. So we have a lot of untangling to do, I think, with just knowing exactly there's some details of what the association has paid for in the past and what the school district pays for now. So in our upcoming operations meeting, we will be meeting again to figure out the best way to go forward with that. And that was the bulk of the meeting right there.
Okay,
I have a question.
yeah.
That you discussed the payment for the
Weight room
weight
supervisor?
room supervisor. Is that going to be put on the pay scale like with the coaches, or is that just going to be a flat rate? I mean, how was that discussed? Because I mean, if it's on that, then it needs to go into the contract, correct?
That's correct. And what we did, if you go back to the work that we did last spring when we put the plan together, we actually set aside $10,000. And when we met with the Staff Welfare Committee, they kind of wondered at that. They thought that was a lot of money for a weight room coach. And so that's why we checked. They wanted more additional research. That's why we checked with other schools to see what they were doing. Interestingly enough, I did check with, I read the Des Moines Register and last Sunday's Des Moines Register had an article about the weight room coach at the University of Iowa.
Seriously.
Yes, a nice article about,
But I mean,
what a coincidence.
yeah, right.
What do you guess that the weight room coach at the University of Iowa earns on an annual basis?
Probably more than I do.
$775,000.
Yeah, like I said.
Is that more than you make, Julie?
Close.
Okay, yeah, so, so I think from a temporary standpoint, yes, because this coming spring will be a negotiations year for our faculty and the principals, that I would recommend that be something that be put into the teachers' agreement as part of the Schedule C.
And then, do we have different individuals, or will we have one person in charge of it? I mean, so we have some continuity, some consistency in how things are run in the weight room?
That's a good question. At this point, John Kesselring has been doing it, but his family is growing in March, and so whether or not he'll do it all 4 seasons is not known at this point. And Matt didn't know. There may be other people involved, but my guess is that there probably wouldn't be more than 2 people, either one or 2 people.
I mean, there's some safety with the equipment,
There is,
and just the knowledge of how to use it, and
right.
To do the programs they have the right way and to implement those programs.
Right.
It's very, very beneficial to all of our athletic programs.
it is. It
And-
is. But I mean, you still have to be able to use it correctly
There is a
in
right
order
and a-
for
yeah.
it to benefit. So,
There is a wrong way to lift weights.
absolutely.
Well, I know that, one of the things that the committee recommended is that we get a log, and we actually do a log. The main thing we want to make sure, we have 22 sports teams, and we want to make sure that all sports teams have equal access.
Sure.
We don't want to make sure that just the soccer team or the football team doesn't dominate the entire weight room, and I see you have something to say.
Is it a coach or a supervisor? if it's a weight room coach, then there should be programs in place for actual strength training as
Right.
opposed to just someone who's sitting at the front of the room making sure everyone's using the equipment appropriately.
Right.
So we need
Right.
to designate
That's-
specifically
that's a
what
good point.
what its
Very good
title
point.
is.
Well, I know Mr. Kesselring is not only a coach, but former head football coach in Iowa before he came here, and is a PE
And
health
a weight
teacher
room
now and
coach
a
should
coach,
be
so.
knowledgeable to know if, for tennis players, what their type of weightlifting regimen should be
Right.
versus football players versus a track runner versus a long-distance cross-country runner. I mean, ideally, that's what a weight room coach would be responsible for.
Right. Whereas a supervisor would come up and just say, Joe's here, Bobby's here. You know, I mean,
Well, the title of this is weight room coach.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
So that's our intent.
So we need to have clear expectations.
So then we will,
Right.
yep, we will make that.
Good discussion.
I'm on top of that.
Thank
Good.
you.
I knew you would be. We still have 12 minutes, so.
Okay, Julie, you're on a roll. How about,
I think I've talked enough, though.
how about board high school staff meeting?
Well, actually, the board, the meeting, we just had that, that was just the other
Yeah,
morning.
Friday.
Thursday? Friday, last Friday morning it was.
Friday morning.
And Rufus and myself and Mari was there again with us. And we had very good discussion on things. I mean, Rufus, you really kind of took the lead in that. And I just piped in a couple times, believe it or not. But if you want to take,
Well, it was, is this annual, our meeting?
We try to do it.
we at least do it once a year.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
we,
So it was an opportunity for the board to meet with the teaching staff and, field any questions they had. And so there were a lot of questions pertaining to money that we had set aside before this year for the idea of evening, weekend, and summer classes.
yep.
And so it generated a lot of questions from the staff, and what were the guidelines, what we're looking for, and I think we simply said that from the board and superintendent's perspective, we're looking for innovation. We don't really have any blueprint. We want teachers to come up with ideas for programs that will benefit the students, benefit the district. It could be fine arts, it could be, math, science.
Well, just one of the things that has just happened was the aviation class
Right.
that was started the last year or two. And I mean, how that has just kind of grown from just somebody's brainchild basically to, these kids are actually learning how to fly the aircraft and that. But I mean, I shouldn't say we told, the encouragement was that we can, that the staff can use these, just whatever they want to do, come up with whatever idea they can to make these kids successful. And, we gave them just different, options. We did talk about some class sizes, but we didn't really say that they were held to any certain class sizes, but just how they could make the kids be more interested maybe in the classroom and the different subjects that was available. And also in our contract, they can work, they have an 8-hour day. Am I right? It's just 8 hours. It can be any time. And they could, maybe some students, are not able to meet in a morning format of the school. So maybe we have a class that meets in the evening. Or like with the welding, we have a Saturday class that meets. So, there's just different ways. And, we kind of gave that to the staff as, take this and run. Make it what works for you and the students.
And just to let the public know that it's actually 5 different teachers right now that are doing something like this. I'll just mention them. Mrs. Dulmeyer is doing a coding class after school for grades 3 through 6. Mrs. Walters, Kristen Walters, is doing an extended time ELL class for first graders. Jerry Brooks did a a really mini aviation class. Now, that was paid for out of Big Ideas, which is a group out of New Ulm, but they paid him his his hourly rate of pay, even though he only had 4 students. And Bob Bodine, of course, is doing Welding Academy class again this Saturday. And then Jeannie Garber is our new family and consumer science teacher. She's proposing that we become part of what's called ProStart. Now, ProStart is to food production what FFA is to agriculture. And ProStart, there's many, many schools across the state that have ProStart organizations, and she's looking at doing
So it's like a
something-
membership, like a club? Yeah.
It's like a club. It's an extended time type program that these would be like classes that would be taught outside. She's willing to either teach at nighttime or on Saturday or in the summer. So she's putting that together. But if you Google ProStart in Minnesota, there's probably about 80 schools that have ProStart. I know Albert Lee has ProStart.
Right.
Austin has ProStart. And I'll tell you who talked to me about this a year ago is the manager of the Holiday Inn. Help me out. Yeah, Jason Stuber. Thank you. Jason Stuber gave me information on this a year ago because they're, obviously in the food production, hotel management, there's a lot of need for lots of workers. And
Well,
so,
and the other thing about, you shared the email regarding this, and
Yes.
the students that participate, they'll get a certificate
Yes,
that, with that certificate, they could walk into most restaurants and get a job relatively easily because they have had the extra training on food preparation.
so the whole point of that story is that we wanted to publicly point out to all the faculty, E through 12, that the school board, as we prepared our budget for this year, we set aside some dollars so that if teachers wanted to do something over and above what they're currently doing. And again, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this really for one of the reasons is to give our students more electives and also to try to recruit more students to come to our district because our enrollment is down a little bit because of our lower kindergarten, first and second grade numbers. Our high school numbers are still very strong. And when I compare our high school with other high schools in the region, whether it's north central Iowa or south central Minnesota, we have a lot of programs here that don't exist in some of the smaller districts. And so one way to prevent a student from open enrolling from, let's say, Grenada or Truman or Martin County West into our district full-time, they could simply come and take a class. I'll point out that when Bob Bodine, the last 2 years that he's done the welding class, he's taught 20 students from Blue Earth area, 12 one year and 8 the other. And the students came over. They came over every Saturday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12 noon. They left Blue Earth around 7 in the morning. None of these students, I should say it positively, every Blue Earth student had perfect attendance. So they were here for 15 Saturdays, 4 hours a day for 60 hours. And it was just a great way for us to share our resources because we're the only high school in the region that has 21 welding booths.
Well, I've said this before. These students, when they grow up, they're going to be our community members. I don't care if they go to Truman, if they go to Grenada, Blue Earth, they're going to be our community members when they get to that point. So we're just working to keep all the community members that much better prepared for our future. And you know what? They're going to have to take care of me. So I need that. We all need that. So, I just think that's really important.
Well, it was fun, too, to watch the Blue Earth High School football players and our Fairmont football players doing the welding class together. It really was a treat to watch because, it's like, hey, our uniforms are off, we're students, and we're learning how to weld, and that was kind of a neat deal.
Okay, we have a few minutes left before we begin.
We did pretty good, didn't we?
Joe might
got-
have been.
Oh, did you go to SDCC?
I did not.
I didn't
Okay,
make
so we will maybe adjourn our,
Do we
Well,
adjourn the meeting?
we don't
or-
have to adjourn, actually.
okay,
We don't have to adjourn.
Yeah, we just have to wait till 6 o'clock.
okay.
So what else do you want to talk about? A good recess?
Do you need to take a
or-
4-minute recess? Go ahead.
What?
We can't start till 6:01.
We can't start the truth and taxation hearing until
Right.
6.
So do we have to make a motion?
No, we
to
don't have
No.
to. No, we
No.
can keep going.
But you can recess, or we can find another topic to talk about.
Well, I noticed following this meeting, we have Lindsay Price here to talk about a proposal to have a abatement, tax abatement.
Okay.
And that we'll follow that after the truth and taxation. And Bradley Carlton will be doing the truth and taxation presentation. And just to give you a teaser, as you know, our taxes are not going up next year. We're one of the few entities in the region that our taxes are going down. Not by much, but they're going down. And so I just thought
Well,
I'd
the
throw that
important
out.
thing is they're not going up.
So you can, as you listen to this tax presentation, you know what the end result's gonna be.
Spoiler alert.
What's that?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Details at 6. Are we expecting snow on Wednesday? No? Okay, good. All right, good.
I think it's supposed to be, even this weekend is supposed to be pretty nice, I think I've
Really?
heard, weather-wise. I
Good.
mean, I don't think it's frigid cold. I mean, I think it's reasonable for this time of year.
While we
20s.
have a couple of minutes, I'll point out that Mari, one of our new school board members, her and I attended the Phase 1 training at the Minnesota School Board Association. That was last Thursday?
Thursday night, before we met Friday morning, right?
It was. And we pulled back into town at 11 o'clock. And, but what a great training. And we actually sat with 4 school board members from Blue Earth. 3 new school board members. One of them is Kyle Zerke, and him and his father own Zerke Built Manufacturing. So we talked about welding. But it was really nice to meet the Blue Earth school board members. So they had one that had been reelected, and then 3 brand-new school board members. And so it was a nice visit.
So how is their board, because if they had 4, do they have 7 board members?
They
or-
do.
And then just 4 one year, and then the next time 3?
That's correct. And because 3 weren't official board members yet, those 4 could be together without a public meeting, because they weren't official yet until January. But very nice members of the board. We enjoyed meeting them and talking with them, and quite a few other schools were there. They're probably, what, about 35 maybe? And then I looked over at the LeSueur Henderson table, and this young man's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and we took a break, and he came up and said, "Mr. Brown, I don't know if you remember me, but you were my principal when I was in 7th grade." And he had a name tag on. His name is Joe Roby. I said, "Joe, I do remember you." But now he's got a full beard and dark hair, but
He's a board member now?
he's a board member now.
Oh,
He's a board
good
member
for
at
you.
LeSueur Henderson. But I was there 1996 to 99, so that's been almost 20 years. So is it 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Okay, we're ready to have our truth and taxation hearing. Mr. Carlton.
Okay, Bradley.
All right, I'll take it away from here. Once I turn the TV on so that you can also see the PowerPoint slides here.
Okay,
See if this works. All right,
there we go.
we are
Do
on.
we want to turn that TV on too, so the audience can see? Does that control the
I don't know if it-
same?
I'll see if it is.
Does that one come on too? There we go.
Perfect.
Technology is an amazing thing. So, I will apologize in advance. I have 25 slides for you in 19 minutes. And virtually all of them, the language that is on them is required for me to speak. So I will go through as quickly as I can, but highlighting the points that actually matter to people. So, first slide is, here we are. So, every truth and taxation law requires us to have a meeting such as this. Every taxpayer receives a mailed notice that includes the taxes that they'll be paying for city, county, school district, and various other taxing entities. Whether those taxes are going up or down, we're required to hold a meeting. It can't be before 6 o'clock by statute, so that's why we had to stall for a little while here. We are required to have that meeting between November 25th and December 27th, so we are right smack in the middle of that period. For any truth and taxation meeting, we are required to discuss the property tax levy that you're about to hopefully approve at the end of the session, items from our current year budget, and we also are required to provide time for public comment. So in the event that anyone out there has anything to say, we are required to make that available. So key things to remember anytime we're talking about school district property taxes. The state pretty much decides what we can get in property taxes. Far and away, if we go line by line through our levy, it's formula this, formula that. You have this number of many students, so you can get this. We, as a school board, don't have a whole lot of things that we can just say, this is how much we're levying for this. So it's very, very formulaic. Most of the items that are on our levy are things that are also mixed with state aid. So there are very few things on the levy that we could say, we don't want this money, we're not gonna levy this, and not have that be an impact on the state aid side of our formula. Additionally, you can see things from time to time where our property taxes go up, but we're not actually getting any more revenue as a district because the mix between property taxes and state aid is something that the legislature does change from time to time, and we have no control over their decisions on those front. I have this slide for you that is very confusing and difficult to understand, and I think more important than the information that's actually on the slide is that it's an illustration of how difficult to understand the levy process is. So what this is actually showing you is the time cycle in months and recognition of when we have to actually think about certain levies. So right now it's December of 2018, so that's the 12th month over from the left side, and our current year revenue is the levy that you approved last December. So that's on my mind as business manager. Our budget includes revenue from a different levy, and our school year lines up with a different levy, and we just had auditors that presented to you about 2 months ago, and they were looking at yet another different levy. So at any given time, I'm looking at 3 different levies and trying to juggle those. And even as we were preparing the agenda, we had to argue about what the numbers on the years were to get it right. So the next portion here is looking at our budgets. So our 2018-2019 budget, you actually approved that back in June. If we are the city or the county, the budget part lines up a little better because it's the budget for the year that you haven't started yet. So we're already halfway through our budget year, but this is the year we'll talk about. So there are 8 different funds. First is the general fund, which, as you know, contains most of what we do as a school district. We have our food service fund, our community service fund, which includes our educational elements that are outside of the K through 12 environment. We have our capital fund, which includes our capital expenditures, our health and safety, compliance, and long-term facilities maintenance. Our debt service fund to make payments of principal and interest on our different outstanding bonds. We maintain a student activities fund. We have an enrichment trust and a Hunt Farm permanent trust that we also keep track of. This slide shows us a little summary of revenues, our 17-18 revenues in comparison to our 18-19 budget. The biggest thing in there that is kind of the big mover, we issued some refunding bonds in school year 18. So that was a big piece in that debt service row. So we didn't act, in the grand scheme of things, we really didn't have a reduction of 25% of our revenues. We just don't issue those bonds every time, and that's a revenue in the year that they're issued. So Our revenues come from various sources, the biggest of which is from the state. So between general education aid, special education aid, and a host of other items, that accounts for 81.2% of the revenues that come to our general fund. The next largest, but much, much, much smaller piece of the pie is local property taxes, coming in at 12.4%. We get 3.1% from our federal aids and other local sources like activity fees and fines, grants, yes. So that pie might be a little bit bigger next time around, but 3.4% from our other locals. This slide shows us a breakdown of our expenditures by fund. So interestingly enough, I mentioned the refunding bonds that made our revenues look very large in the last fiscal year. They are making our expenditures look very large in the coming fiscal year. We issued what was called crossover refunding bonds, which essentially means you draw down a second bond and then you wait until the bonds are callable and able to be paid off. That will be February 1st of 2019. So those bonds will be paid off. The funds are held in escrow until that time. So that's definitely the biggest change in our expenditures. This little guy shows how our general fund dollars are broken down. So biggest piece, of course, is our regular instruction, teacher salaries, teacher benefits, classroom materials, textbooks. 48.2%. Our next biggest category is instructional support services, which contains our technology for student use is a big piece in there. Staff development is another. Curriculum also in there. Then pupil support services coming in at 10.2%. That's our school nurse, our counselors, our social workers, and a few other miscellaneous items, as well as transportation. So that's a big one in that category. That's the breakdown of how our expenditures break down in terms of by function. So this is 54% to salaries and wages, 17.7% to employee benefits, 21.9% for purchase services, 5.8% for supplies and materials, and then capital expenditures and other round out the remaining 0.5%. One of the things we looked at with the completion of our audit in October is our fund balances in the general fund. So this is a very simplified version of our fund balance breakdown there. We have unassigned fund balances totaling $2,651,578.
2 million. You said 2,000.
Yes, $2,651,578.
Scared me.
Assigned fund balances of $3,921,236. We also have a committed fund balance of $400,000, restricted fund balances of $191,544, and non-spendable fund balances of $35,281. Any questions regarding the budget section of our presentation? I'll move on to our levy here. So, as I mentioned at the outset, our tax levies are fairly formulaic. Mostly are not at our discretion, but anything that's in the levy is either set by the legislature directly or is approved by our voters. There are a number of factors that can impact any change in taxes. The ratio of sales within our district can impact what the legislature looks at in how they're making their decisions. They may change things within our tax capacities, and there could be changes in laws. Health and safety, for example, you can levy for certain projects that are specific to what's going on with your district. Our district voters are able to impact our taxes by approving building bonds or through excess levy referendums. Currently, we did not seek any of those in the last term, so those are not issues for us right now. Locally, we can see changes in the real estate market, abatements, we'll have a hearing on that in a few minutes. Can see changes in property improvements, changes in assessed market values, changes in property classification. A lot of times when someone comes to a truth and taxation hearing, they may be upset about their property taxes going up. It may have nothing to do with how much we've levied, and it may have everything to do with what a county assessor might have decided their property was worth. So if someone's property is worth more now than it was on their last statement, then they will be paying a bigger piece of the property tax pie, how it gets allocated out to all taxpayers. So we generally have nothing to do with that. We don't actually even make the assessment. So that's one of the big things that can make a difference. I'm showing here how our property tax levy is broken out. We will have 38% in our debt service fund, 20% in our capital fund, 3% for our community education fund, and 39% in our general fund. And this is a breakdown by actual dollar amounts. So our general fund will actually have less in property taxes by $197,992.55. Our community services fund will increase by $1,497.25. Our capital fund will increase by $324,059.73. And our debt service fund will reduce by $138,627.95 for a total levy reduction of $11,063.52.
Bradley?
Yes.
The capital fund increase, is that the rehab of Lincoln?
That is for our lease levy. So my next slide here is showing a couple of the bigger changes. So we will, for the first time on the Pay 19 levy, have a lease levy to rehabilitate the Lincoln School on behalf of the Southern Plains Education Cooperative. So we and the other members of the cooperative will each have a lease levy on our property taxes, and those dollars will go back to the cooperative to support their costs in running that building. We actually got a special waiver so that we could do that lease levy, given that we used to own that building. Mm-hmm. So typically, if you sell a building, you can't later request money from your taxpayers to lease it. But it was the state allowed us to do that, given the importance of the project and the amount of time it's been since we actually owned it. So, but the other items that I was going to point out here that showed a more kind of significant decrease, our local optional revenue and our referendum revenues both are showing decreases in property tax levy, and that's why you're seeing our general fund decline. Those are both measured on a per pupil basis, so our number of projected students are less. Mm-hmm. So therefore, when we multiply that on a per pupil basis, we have less in property tax levies for those items. So there are a couple of other line items that are also impacted similarly, but those are the two biggest pieces from the general fund. Then the lease levy was the other significant item there. Also, our debt service levy is going to decline considerably, and there are two factors there. One is that we've issued bonds to help us pay off some of our existing debt, so our total principal and interest payments will be a little less in terms of dollars that we have to actually levy for. Additionally, there's a piece of debt service levy that's called debt service excess. So you levy for 105% of what your principal and interest payment needs are. Over time, that extra 5% that you're levying can build up if you have good payments and your delinquent levels are low. So over time, you build up an extra 5%, 5%, 5%. There are formulas built in to keep that number from getting to be too much. So if you build up a sizable fund balance in your debt service fund, your levy will be reduced to compensate for that. So our taxpayers are seeing some of those savings from having done a good job of paying their taxes in the past. I've referenced a number of these, but some of the variables that can cause our increases and decreases. I mentioned changes in market values, classifications, class rates. If a property is changing from a residential to a commercial property, that will inevitably change how they're classified and how much tax they'll pay. Another element that's very important for us is changes in property tax credits. The school building bond tax credit is now in effect for ag properties. So those taxpayers in the rural areas used to be taxed at a higher level for building bonds. Now there's a state tax credit that's in place that reduces that amount by 40%. So those rural landowners should be seeing a substantial decrease in their property taxes. We won't see a decrease in our revenues on that front because we'll get that money back in a state tax credit. There would just be less that they actually have to pay. Now, unfortunately, we aren't able to illustrate that here because we are still levying for the same amount. It just so happens that when that levy is spread by the county, more of those dollars will be paid through tax credits, less of it by the taxpayers. But we still have to levy it in order to get that tax credit. So we're not able to say that we've got $100,000 worth of tax credit here to lower our tax levy. So we have to show that anyway.
But Bradley, if you own agricultural land within any school district in Minnesota right now that has had a building bond that you're still paying off like we are, then that individual farmer or the owner of the ag land will see a 40% reduction on that piece of their property taxes, which in the past went for the school building.
Right.
So if they were paying $1,000, I'm just throwing that number out. If they were paying $1,000 to pay for the school bond, now they'll pay $600.
Correct.
Okay.
So for those people that are getting those property tax statements, they should have a very nice change positive change for them on that property tax statement. So
Yeah.
I don't think any of them showed up to complain about it tonight, so I'd be surprised.
Well, it'd be something the property tax owners should look at and review to make
Correct.
sure that that credit is there
Yep.
by, some unforeseen circumstance that didn't get put on their tax.
It doesn't
Statement.
apply to every single line item of their property taxes, and it doesn't apply to every part of their property.
Right.
But it should make a substantial difference in any rural landowner's property taxes. Other items that can cause increases or decreases, voter-approved referendums. I mentioned we don't have any of those this time around. Changes in state funding formulas can also make a big difference. Increase or decrease in property. This is a good one too. Value of other properties. So if we were to add, say through an abatement process, some additional property in our district, that can lower the tax burden for everyone else if other properties are built that are paying taxes. Or if, say, a large employer left and was no longer paying taxes, that same tax burden is still there, so it would be spread among the remaining taxpayers. So that can make a big difference. School board actions, I think that's about the 8th one I have on the list, also can impact an increase or decrease in property taxes. So this is the last slide that I've got. So it breaks down by fund. You'll notice I have combined the general fund and capital fund on this one. It's kind of a technicality. We maintain a capital fund here, but from a state reporting standpoint, that capital fund is part of the general fund. So I have it broken down into 3 pieces here. Our general fund totaling $3,359,705.16. Our community service fund, $150,187.74, and our debt service fund at $2,202,004.41, for a grand total of $5,711,897.31. So I see that it is 6:21, so I am 1 minute over. My apologies.
That's okay, we have some questions. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions about the property tax levy? If you go to the microphone? Sure.
Mic on?
Sure.
Should
yes.
be.
Okay. I guess I may be the only one in here, but I don't understand. There's 2 levies on my property tax statement. And let me just pull it up here and look at it. But I'm sure that, like you described, it's either approved by the board or by the state or by taxes, but it's just got other local levies. And I don't know what that is.
Do you mind if I take a look?
So there's, this voter-approved levy, and then there's other levies.
Right. So voter-approved levies.
Hey, Bradley, will you go to the mic? Yeah.
So voter-approved levies include our school building bonds and any, what we would commonly call an operating referendum would be where the school district is directly saying, we would like you to approve a referendum for this much per student.
So is there a number of them in there, or is?
There, we do have an operating referendum in there, and we also have a number of building bonds over the course of the years that are in there.
Okay,
Then
so-
the other local levies are the items that we are allowed to levy by statute. So, in terms of your ability to approve those, it would be through your election of the legislature sets those. So, a lot of those are formulaic things that we get X number per pupil for this and for this and for this, and they don't require us to specifically ask for those
Okay.
levies.
I mean, my question is just basically understand, because it's just a line item, but
Right.
if you do the numbers on there, that particular levy on the one property went up over 25%, so I'm
Right,
kinda
so
going-
the biggest piece on that line item would be the lease levy that we referred to. So, as a whole, the taxpayer, that's a completely new levy for us. So, it was 289,000, I believe, was the levy on that. So that's spread across the entire tax base.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Joe, maybe we could explain to some of the folks the bonds that we still have out. I know we have the bonds for the new elementary school wing, would be
Yes.
one of them. Does this include the facilities upgrades there in 2009, 2010?
That's correct. When the school district, that was before I came, but the school district voted to do the replacement of the heating and cooling systems of both buildings, the dehumidification and the remodeling project that was done. Right.
And the voter-approved ones would be the per pupil of, what is the current amount? Was it $800 per student?
Actually, our operating levy is about 1,000.
Okay.
But there's so much that is like state.
Yeah, there's so much that was approved by the voters, and then
Right.
the state also,
Right.
in the recent legislative session,
Yeah, and we have
added
the,
to that amount.
And we do have, Fairmont does have the lowest operating levy of all 4 of the public school districts in Martin County, significantly. Ours is just over $1,000. I know Grenada Hill East Chain is over $3,000 per student. Of course, they have fewer students, so, it raises less money.
Well, and
But,
fewer
yeah.
students, and then also there's less engineering or businesses and that too that share that.
Right.
So I mean, and their agricultural is there, but yet they don't have the industry that Fairmont would have that can share that.
Right. That's why it's so important to get more industry in town, and that's going to be our next topic in just a minute. But back to this gentleman's question about the tax levy going up for others, just to talk about that again. The Lincoln School that we used to own on the north side of town, we sold that, I think, 6.5 years ago now to somebody from Missouri. They turned it around and sold it to somebody else. It sat vacant for a while. And now that building is now in the project. It will be starting to be rehabbed in January. And the rehab is about a $12 million rehabilitation. And that's being paid for by 5 school districts, United South Central, Blue Earth area, Martin County West, Fairmont, and Grenada Huntley East Chain. And our portion of that will be paying $289,923 per year to pay for that rehabilitation of that building. But even with that said, with the refunding of the bonds that Bradley talked about earlier, and that was done when Sue Nelson was still with us, she was very good about it. Anytime we could refinance bonds at a cheaper rate and lower the property tax burden. That's why our property taxes, they only go down 11,000, but at least they're not going up overall. But the mix does change a little bit. And so that was a good question that you asked about the different levies that you have. And I will tell you, school funding and school finance in Minnesota is very, very complex. I've lived in Minnesota for 25 years, and Bradley and I met the other day. The tax levy, it's a 99-page document. It's 33 pages, but it's 40 pages and 3 columns.
40 pages,
Yeah,
yeah, 3 columns.
So it's 120 pages. Every school district has to go through that, so it's really fascinating. But
And
anyway.
it's 14% of our general fund revenues.
Right, because the vast majority of our money, of course, comes directly from St. Paul, which also is taxes. It's taxes that we pay as citizens. We pay we pay income tax, and we pay sales tax and things like that. So it's our money that's coming back from the capital in St. Paul. So any other questions on the tax levy? If not, Mr. Chairman, if you would seek a motion to approve the tax levy.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the 2018 payable 2019 tax levy.
I'll second it.
Julie?
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion will pass. So now we will move to the tax abatement.
Right. And Lindsay, do you want to talk first? And Lindsay and I have met on this a couple of times, and in your board packet is a comprehensive analysis or comprehensive proposal for this tax abatement. And could you, Lindsay, introduce yourself, but also if you could introduce the 2 folks that are with you.
Yes, hi, I'm Lindsay Price. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for the City of Fairmont. And with me are the 2 owners of Great Plains Transportation, Sherry DeYoung and Jan Bosma. And they are here because we are looking at a tax abatement. They're looking at doing an expansion of their building. They started their business 23 years ago, and it was just those 2 in Fairmont, and now they've grown to 42 full-time equivalent employees. And they're looking at growing again, and they're actually growing to the point where they can't grow anymore inside their building, so they're looking at adding on a 12,000 square foot addition to their building. If you know where it is, it's the Arthur Andrews Building on State Street, and they will be continuing to operate that building as well. So they're the owner of both the business that operates the building and the business inside the building, which is Great Plains Transportation. And so within 5 years, they have promised to create another 8 full-time equivalent jobs at least $12.50 an hour plus benefits, and that is just starting, of course. And then they also have the length of the abatement will be for a term of 10 years, which for the school district, it would mean $14,632 per year for a total of $146,320 over the 10-year term. This will be an abatement on just the new addition of the building and not the building that they're currently in itself. They'll still continue to pay taxes. So this abatement just means that if they would not be doing the expansion, you would not see an increase in the taxes in the first place. So if you have any questions, they can answer questions on the business, and I can answer questions on the abatement.
Lindsay, I had a couple of questions from some school board members in preparation of tonight's meeting. I'll just point those out. The one question that one of our board members asked is approximately in what time frame will this new construction take place, And as I read the report, it's supposed to be substantially complete by December 31st of 2020.
That's correct. So
Is that correct?
that
Okay.
is the agreement. So obviously we want to make it so the agreement, they don't want to not follow with the guidelines. So they're anticipating that to be done sooner. They're planning to start construction at the first of the year or as soon as they can. And then it will go from there. So the way the taxes work, again, as he was stating, is the valuation would not go on until 2021, which is why we're abating the years that we've proposed.
I was looking at the owner, so does that sound right to you, what's in the agreement? So within 2 years, I mean, the building,
Yeah, we want it to be completed before that.
right,
Because we're out of space and we need to hire employees right now.
right, okay. And I'm going to repeat that comment for the TV cameras, but the intention is to get that built before the 2 years are up. But according to the agreement, it needs to be built before the 2 years are up. And the other question a board member asked, and it was a good question, is that, how much does the school district lose? And my understanding is that the school district doesn't really lose any money because right now it's not built and we're not taxing it. And the fact that it is built and we're not taxing it for 10 years, we're not going to get any additional money. But also, please take note, as Bradley pointed out, even when it gets built and they start paying taxes in 10 years, we may not get any additional revenue because our revenue is totally based on the number of students that come to our school district. That's the formula that's based. So, as superintendent, I have to tell you, I was really happy. I've always supported every abatement that Lindsay has brought forward because anything we can do in this community to build buildings and to encourage additional jobs and to hopefully these people will come and have children and the children will be our customers and it's just good for everybody. So it's great. I just want to applaud, 23 years being in the same business is phenomenal. And the fact that you've grown from, 2 folks to 42 is incredible. And that's what makes this part of the state so good. Anyway, board members?
I have a question. So there are multiple entities that are considering this abatement, government groups, but if one group decides not to do it, how does that affect the rest of the abatement?
So every entity itself is going to have their separate abatement agreement with the company. So the school, if you approve, will have their separate agreement. Whether or not the city or the county does it will have nothing to do with what the school does. It will just impact their ability to or potential to do the project. So at this point, the city council did pass it last night, and the county is going to be looking at it on January 8th.
Okay. So no matter what, the project will go forward?
No.
No?
It is not guaranteed that it will go forward. They will have to consider what happens when, depending on your decision and the county's decision.
Okay.
Any other questions?
For folks that are not familiar with your business, could you maybe describe a little bit of the work that you do, some of the services that your business provides, and perhaps the reason why you need to grow, the reason why you need more employees? Would that be possible?
Thank you for having us first and for considering this. We do appreciate it. We license and legalize trucking companies across the United States, and then we also finance the trucking companies' receivables. And what that is we're using their accounts receivable that they produce from hauling the loads, and then we buy those accounts receivable and give them the money right away. Needless to say, with the way the economy is booming, there's a need for the trucking companies right now because everything we have gets hauled on a truck at some point. And we've had great growth in our business. We're using technology. We like being in this area just from the work ethic of the people that we have. We have considered opening offices in other areas, but every time Jan and I sit and talk about that, we come back to the fact that we do like our employees from this area. We like being in the small communities, and so that's why we have chosen to try to get as many people as we can and to expand here. One of the reasons that we can't take it, we've owned the Arthur Andrews office building for a number of years. We purchased it from Joanne Hodgman. And one of the things that we've got in there is we do have 2 government agencies that we have long-term leases in there. Of course, the government is our good renters. We've enjoyed working with them. We don't want to displace them due to the fact that there's limited places that they can go here in Fairmont too. So that's why it took a lot of decision-making as to whether or not we were going to expand our business, try to add on to the business, or try to find someplace else for those government offices. And so that's what, we're just trying to make this all work so that we can keep the renters that we have in place, and then we can still continue to grow our business.
I see. You answered my question, and then the next one I was going to answer or ask, you answered that one too. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Very good. Anybody else?
Any other questions? No?
So
Okay.
The resolution.
It's a resolution.
Where's the resolution?
Appendix E.
Yeah. Who wants to read it?
The whole dang thing?
I'm the resolution guy.
Just move it.
Okay. Pursuant to due call.
Julie?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now we can adjourn.
Okay, I think that's all for tonight.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Julie,
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.